Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UFO Undercover. I know we've been going for a couple of weeks because we've been doing the Centralists here. We've got a lot of stuff been moving around on the network, and Mike and I and a few others really needed to get some politics in because we had been missing it on Friday night because the Science and Beyond is up for an award. Matter of fact, I just got through voting for it a few minutes ago. Be sure, people, you'll hear the promo in just a second. Be sure to get out there, vote. Because really and truly, guys, we all work really hard for these nominations. We have 5 shows up for nominations. We got Writers of the Future. We've got The Centralist, Science and Beyond, The Outer Realm, and Chasing Prophecy. All 5 are up for awards. I'm hoping to see at least 10 shows up next year for awards. So, anybody can sponsor a show to be up for an award. This is the crucial part right here. These are the nominations. So the more votes we get, the more nomination hits you get, the more likely you are to get into the final week of voting, which starts in August. So get out there and vote for all these shows. You can go right over to uprn.com, uprntalkradio.com, and you look on the right side of the list. And right there, just click, and vote. And be sure to get out there and just vote, people. If you don't want to vote for all of us, that's fine. If you got a particular favorite you want to vote for, that's fine too. Just go over and vote. I mean, we've got a lot of shows to vote for. I'm really surprised a couple of other shows didn't make it, but I'm sure they'll make it next year. Some of the new shows I didn't expect to make it. Let's just be honest about that. Even though one of them did get in there, which surprised me. Really, some of the older shows that didn't make it kind of surprised me too. But people have personal favorites, and that's who they're going to nominate. So, I'll get with my host that didn't make it this year, and we'll get a plan together so we can all make it next year. We do have a lot of shows on the network, and we want to get them all in there because the more shows we have in, the more likely we are to win. The more likely we get to go out to Vegas or to LA, wherever they're going to host this year, and have a good time, getting our awards and stuff like that. I did get an iHeart Award this year for a National iHeart Award for, what do they call it, for, what the hell do they call it? Now I forgot now.
Having a heart.
No, it was for, having a heart. Something, I'll remember in a minute. When I do, I'll tell y'all. It was just it was for honorable mention. I'm sorry, damn, I couldn't get it out for some reason, and I got a little plaque coming in. So honorable mention just means you didn't win the top 10, but we were listed in the top 10. We actually were listed in the top 5. That's why we're going to get the honorable mention, but we didn't win. So, but still getting the iHeart honorable mention. It's a nice thing to have. We've got 2 best broadcasters in New Orleans. We won 2020, 2021. It looks like we're going to win 2022 as well. So it's pissing off these local broadcasters like WWL and WRNO. They can't understand why we're whooping them. These are multi-million-dollar stations, and here we are just whooping them left and right. And it's mainly because we have content. We don't just shit there all day and shit crap. We have content, and we don't take a side in most stuff. Every now and then we get forced to, but for the most part, we don't really take sides. In politics, we just tell you what we think is going on. We'll read you the news, give you a little commentary, and then we move on. Especially if it's Mike and I, we'll kind of bat the story back and forth just to knock the dirt out of it and see where it lines up. And for this Friday, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on this week. We're going to talk about it, like Afghanistan pullout and stuff like that. Some other stuff going on with Cracker Joe, so we'll be talking about all that. And also, Trump just leveled lawsuits against Twitter, Facebook, and somebody else. Man, he's suing the crap out of him. So we're going to see it. He's not suing the company. He's suing the owners. I'm dying to see how this is going to come out. And then, of course, we have to talk about Trump's little company being in trouble with the district attorney in New York, which nobody thinks is credible. That's the other part. I've heard several judges say even if the DA comes up with something now, it'll probably get overturned by another court because for some reason this does look like a witch hunt in their case. But anyway, enough about that. Tonight, we're going to really be talking about what is this bullshit disclosure? Why does ufology think? I just want to know why ufology thought that there may be real disclosure here. Now, I knew Trump had put this in the bill, and I knew this was going to be coming out, all this documentation, which really, I haven't seen any real documentation. I've only seen them talk about this, and they've said, well, last I heard it was, what was the statement? Well, we can't explain these 144 cases, but it's not extraterrestrial. Okay, well, didn't you just say you couldn't explain them? If you can't explain them, how can you rule out ET?
Exactly.
I mean, that's an oxymoron of a statement. I'm thinking, no, guys, and think about what you just said, people. But anyway, first off, we're going to put some promos up right quick. And then if I'm not back, Mike's going to take over for a minute or two because I'm going to flip some servers on. So we're going to start with this one, which, of course, is the iHeart Award. So here we go.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate for your favorite podcast. There are 4 amazing shows I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, the longest-running premier awards event in the podcasting space, open to shows worldwide. You can vote at podcastawards.com and nominate the following shows. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in the categories of education and storyteller drama. This show is based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard and provides writing tips and art advice from contest judges, winners, and industry professionals for writers and artists wanting to take their next step, along with the needed inspiration to keep on going. Next one, The Centralist in the category of politics and news. The Centralist is a much different news and political program. It is not opinion news, it's just the facts so you, the people, can make up your own minds on the different stories reported on. Listen as Joe Montaldo brings to you just the facts from trusted sources. Science and Beyond in the category of science and medicine. Science and Beyond is a true science-based program that explores every aspect of science, from how things work to why we need science, and where science can't explain something, we go beyond to see if we can figure it out on our own how something works. The Outer Realm in the category of society culture. The Outer Realm is a very popular show hosted by Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, with guests who are well-versed within their respective fields of ufology, paranormal, cryptozoology, and anything else that would be deemed otherworldly. Nothing is off limits in the Outer Realm. Michelle is an international public figure and has spent the last 18 years working in the paranormal. Her co-host Amelia is a remote viewing medium with 9 years experience working in missing children and cold and active murder cases. So go to podcastawards.com to vote for these 4 shows and any others you enjoy listening to. That's podcastawards.com.
Go vote, people. Damn it, go vote. Anyway, I got Michael Angley with me tonight. We're going to be talking about this. So, you've heard all of this. You've been following this. I know we've been talking about this back and forth on the network. And by the way, people, I'm pissed off this show didn't get it nominated. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. This damn show's 20 years old, people. Come on. We've been watching this banner go back and forth amongst the field. So, you see these ufologists. Why did they think, were they just trying to hype it up to make a little money? Because I knew from the get-go there was not going to be any real disclosure. Did you think that we were going to get real disclosure out of this?
We had discussed that multiple times on different shows. Obviously, none of us thought there was going to be anything that was going to be released. But the people that did are very naive. They're not on this network. That's
well,
for
it's
sure.
Funny because, I heard Dr. Stephen Greer. Now, Greer, he did the Disclosure Project way back in the day. I've never been a big fan of Greer. I always thought he was trying to make money out the field, which he charges pretty exorbitant rates for different things. So, but here he is telling me, people, you're going to get to the truth. No, we're not. I don't care who you think, and I love when he says stuff like, I have friends in high places. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a little secret about people in high places. I do have friends in high places. I have above top secret clearance of a class 10. It's way up there. So people can talk to me and know that I'm not going to say anything, because if I do, I'm going to go to jail. So you're not going to go around telling someone who has no clearance anything. If you're a senator or an aide or someone in a key position, you're not going to blab to someone who can go out and say something and get you fired or get you put in jail for whatever reason. It just doesn't happen. It's not the real world. People don't take those kind of chances with their careers. And frankly, I get tired of hearing these different ufologists say, well, I got friends in high places. Well, prove it. Prove it. I want to see it. Everybody knows I served on the Nimitz. Everybody knows where I've been. I've talked about a lot of my stuff over the years, and I've brought in a lot of people to back me up. So, but I never see these other ufologists do this. I just hear a big talk and no action. I thought that 2001, when Stephen Greer did the conference, that was cool. But even then, I knew nothing was going to come out of it, because first off, they started out with, there are 57 different types of aliens visiting the planet. Really? Where? Where?
Will Smith has them all.
Yeah, Will Smith's been smoking with him, apparently. Really? Where did they get this shit from? There's no evidence of that of any kind. There's barely evidence for the 6th type that we mainly talk about. So I'm like, really? Where did you come up with this? Who told you this 56 different kinds? And let's be honest. If there was 56 different kind of aliens visiting, there'd be a lot more different aircraft flying around, or UFOs flying around, or there'd be a lot of really busy stargates. But there is no evidence for that. Nobody sees 56 types of aliens. unless you're saying they look just like us. And then really, are they alien or just a cousin of ours? I get irritated. Go ahead, man. I'm just yapping
Think
away.
they'd be advanced enough where they could shapeshift, man, or something, you know? I mean, really, we don't know because we don't have the evidence or information. We only know what has been captured so far by individuals out there who are looking and investigators, you know? The government will never tell us anything. They don't tell us stuff that that basic stuff going on in the government, man. They don't even share how much toilet paper is used in the Pentagon every year. They don't tell people anything.
Yeah, well,
Nothing.
they don't share that because each roll of toilet paper is like $50,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they don't share that. But probably more like 5,000. But still, people, it's
It's
crazy.
the fancy soft kind, man.
Yeah, it's probably got gold lace on it and stuff. You know, it's gold. It's gold electroplated gold. Some gold plated.
Because they have coddled anuses in the Pentagon. That's right.
I'm just saying, it's got to be shiny and
Coddled.
stuff. Yeah, so they can hit the hole. It's just look at this point. I just don't understand why I hear all these ufology. You know, one of my things is, and Stephen Bassett's a friend of mine. And I really like Stephen. He's a hard-working SOB, and he's really trying to get to the truth. But his thing is always, lights in the sky, lights in the sky, lights in the sky. And I used to always tell him, you're never going to get to the truth chasing lights in the sky. That's because one, half the lights in the sky aren't alien anyway; they're ours. And the other half, I mean, short of shooting a UFO down, which I don't think is possible, you're not going to get any information. So the only two sources of information that you can possibly get is either the government or the people who say they've been contacted. I mean, that's really the only two. And I wouldn't trust the government's information as far as you can throw it, with the exception of like Senator McDonald when I made all of that public. But I waited till he died before I made that. I honored my agreement with him because he came in good faith. Someone told him that if he was looking at these things, because he had an experience in New Mexico when a black triangle flew over his car. And, the first couple of times he contacted, I'm not kidding. First time he contacted me, I hung up the phone. I said, hey, I said, yeah, whatever, click. I just thought it was a prank call. And then I got a couple of other calls, and I just thought they were prank. And then finally, envelope showed up, a yellow envelope showed up at my house with his congressional ID and his driver's license in it. And I said, yeah, maybe. And then next day, I get a knock on my door. Two guys in black suits, black glass on, and a black limousine. I'm thinking, oh shit, they're coming for me, baby. They're coming for me. And it turned out to be him. And we talked, and I told him everything I knew. And he promised me if he found anything, he would tell me. And about 7 months later, I got another vanilla envelope with a lot of crap in it. And it just verified what I already knew about the TR3Bs and the Auroras. But I already knew about this stuff because I've got inside contacts, not in the government, but in the industrial side of it. And I do have contacts in the government, but what I meant was in this case, it wasn't through the government had gotten this information. I'd gotten this information through people I knew that worked for Boeing and Lockheed. You have to remember, I have a Class 10 clearance, but it was that I worked on all kind of advanced electronics. And I met a lot of people in those years of doing it. And over the years, I've stayed in contact with a lot of them. And from time to time, they'll drop me a little tad bit here, a tad bit there, tad bit. I'm never going to mention their names because, I don't want to cost them their job or anything. But still, none of these other guys have this. And then a friend of mine writes to me the other day because he's all pissed at these ufologists. He said, Joe, you're the only one in the field that actually has a pedigree to chase UFOs, and I don't chase UFOs. I'm into the abduction side. And he's like, I don't understand why you don't. I said, because you're never going to get to the truth chasing UFOs. I said, I have posted hundreds of pictures of UFOs that I've taken over the years. Excellent shots. A lot of them even made TV shows, the science shows, a couple made sci-fi shows, but it's not going to change anything. It's not going to prove anything. All it's going to prove is, I got a video of something really weird in the sky that we can't prove what it is. Because even in these videos, I can't tell you for sure it's extraterrestrial. I can tell you it seems like it might be extraterrestrial, but unless ET puts his hand out and says, hey, Joe, what's up? We're still guessing. And I just don't understand why here we are. I've been in the field for 36 years. And I don't understand here we are 36 years later, and nothing's really changed. I've watched hundreds of people come out and say, I've got the truth. I've got the truth. I've got the truth. This disclosure, I've got the truth. And yet nobody seems to have the truth. Why are you doing that? Well, I'll tell you what my biggest disappointment was with ufology when I first got in here. How many people were in the field to make money? And people always say, oh, you can't make money. That's not true. If you're a nobody, you can't make money. But if you're a somebody, you can make a lot of money. To put this in perspective, the very first time I asked Stephen Greer to come on a show, he asked me for $5,500. I was like, for what? I said, I'll listen to everything you said. I said, never mind, don't worry about it. And then while I was at the X conference number 9, he asked me if I wanted to go out to this retreat where we could spiritually meet ET. It was $3,800 a person. and he had already lined up 12 people. You do the math. And he did this 2 or 3 times a year. I'm like, get them out of here, man. This just that just turned me off of him completely. And then everybody I talked to said anytime you want him or anything's associated with him, it costs money. And even right now with his new the Cosmic Coast, it's $10 or $20 a thing. And basically it's a let's kiss Stephen Greer's butt, the entire thing. There's nothing in it of consequence. And everybody, including himself, is just basically kissing his ass. And I'm like, really? I get tired of disappointments like that. At least in Stephen Bassett's said he's tried to get projects on the government. When who was it? Obama? Whoever it was that opened it up. Where if you had 25,000 votes, you could get your thing put on the Pentagon website or on the White House website, and if it reached X amount, I think it was 100,000, they would actually address it. He did that a couple of times. He got up there good ways a couple of times, but in the end, the government's not interested in talking about this to you. They just Unfortunately, they don't think you need to know, and the aliens don't think you need to know either, except for the people that they're taking. So that leaves everybody else in the dark, and I guess for a good reason. If you want to come buzz your house or something, I guess you could get out there and wave your arms up and down top of your roof. But in the end, you're only going to get the truth from ET. Even if the government knows something, they're not going to tell you. And even if they come out and tell you, they're going to tell you more than likely they're going to tell you a lie. And that's nothing new. I mean, look at the stuff going on in Afghanistan right now. I heard Biden say, "Oh well, we had to pull all the troops out because Trump made a deal." And I still remember the AP reporter putting his hands up, going, "Whoa, wait a minute! He also made all these deals that you reneged on. So what's the difference?" So again, the government's never going to tell you the truth because it's not in their benefit to tell you the truth. We could send Michael's big ass down there; they might tell him the truth, but even I'm thinking maybe not.
They would just shoot me in the head.
Yeah, pretty much. And what are you doing here, dude? Now you don't belong here. Go away. I don't feel I don't feel the environment for truth in our country, and not just in this, in anything. I get countless calls a year from people in the government, countless aides. If I had $1 for every aide that called me over the last decade, I could retire people. I'm not kidding you. And 4 or 5 times, every 3 or 4 months, I'll get an aide from here and an aide from there. Every now and then, I've had, like Bigelow's aide call me. I've had a couple of people call me from corporate places. And, they're like, "Oh, can you tell us about this? Or you can tell us about that?" Well, yeah. And I got to be honest, I'm not stingy with sharing with the government. I will share some things with the government. I won't give them names of people because I know they're going to harass them, but I'll give them the information I know. I said, because, the government does need to know. I mean, they're the ones that's supposed to be protecting us. And from time to time, I do get calls. What about this? What about that? Just recently, about 3 months ago, I got a call from a junior aide asking me about a particular contact that we had been talking about. And he wanted to know if I could put them in touch with these people because they seem to have had advanced knowledge of types of craft. And they do. But I'm not going to give the people to them because they're just going to go mill lab them and try to get the information. I mean, they're not even going to be able to retrieve the information because ET is going to probably step in and stop it. So it didn't seem conducive to the individual, the other individual, to give this up. But I did tell them what we thought was going on, what we thought was being done. But still, they really wanted this. And so what I've learned really in the last 20 years is the government doesn't know as much as I do in quite a few things. I'm sure on certain technologies they know far more than I do. But in a lot of stuff when it comes to actual contact and what goes on, they don't. And they have no idea what the agendas are, none whatsoever. I get this question probably 50, 60 times a year. "Hey, man, you know what the alien agenda is?" I said, "Yeah, well, I know about 30 alien agendas. But we don't know what their primary is. What is it that brought him here in the first place? Was it really colonization by the human aliens or by the reptilians? Or was it something else? Maybe they figured we'd wipe out the planet and they'd get a free planet. But, if you look at our DNA, it seems like we might be related to one or more of these extraterrestrials. Because people ask me all the time, "Well, why don't we see alien DNA?" Well, maybe we do, and we're just too stupid to realize it. I mean, let's not forget there's 4,000 pieces of junk DNA that we have no idea what it does. 4,000 pieces in our body, we have no idea what it does. It's just there. And we're learning every day, but still it's there. And some of it may be useless stuff, like the appendix and stuff. Some of it may be stuff that we're going to change into in the future. But right now, our science don't know what the hell it is. But maybe ET does. And maybe they know how to trigger it when we're on board their craft. They seem to have a keen interest in certain humans on this planet. But I have to say, all in all, they do not seem to care about the overall majority of planet Earth. I mean, not the planet itself, but the humans on it. They kind of look at us like, if we're not in the family line abduction thing, we're kind of like roaches or a virus of some sort that's just out of control, running all around the planet, wreaking havoc. It's not like they're going to wipe us out, because if they were going to do that, they'd have done it a long time ago. It's just like they just don't feel a need to tell y'all. And if they don't feel a need to tell you, why would the government tell you? For that matter, why would any of us tell you? Maybe I heard somebody the other day, a friend of mine, Tuesday Miles, she goes, well, I'm interviewing this abductee. Will this make me get abducted? And I started laughing like, no. I think she was interviewing Nadine Leash. I said, no. I said, they're not interested in you. If they were interested in you, they'd already be taking you. It's not like they just up and start taking you at 40. They take you pre-birth. And as far as I can tell, they don't miss anybody. I mean, somehow or another, they track us through our DNA, and they don't use implants or any of that crap. I was talking with Darryl Sims about this. Oh, we recovered this implant. Well, more than likely it was the government. I just don't see, unless it's one of them ones that move around, and that's probably ET. But for the most part, what the hell would they need an implant for? They know where you are. They bring you on the ship for any experiments they want to do, so they don't have to track you they track you via your own DNA. So, which, by the way, we're working on ourselves. So why would they need implants? But on our side, we need implants. We need implants to know where the individual is, what they're doing, what they're up to, what their body functions are, where they've been. We need the implant. So it'd make more sense if anybody's getting an implant, Uncle Sam's doing it. Or
They're
whatever.
doing it now. They're putting implants in people for medical reasons and tracking
Yes,
them.
they are. Well, you can get a V-chip. In case y'all didn't notice, ladies and gentlemen, you can go get a V-chip. They started this with dogs about 10 years ago. Matter of fact, Fiona has a chip in her for tracking. Then they offered it to prisoners. So when they let prisoners out with the ankle bracelet, they could put the chip in there so they would know where they are. It's not easy to remove either. Now they're saying, well, if you're a parent and you would like to get your kid chipped, you can. So this is how it starts. So they're going to offer your kids. Now, a lot of parents are going to take this up on, especially fathers with daughters or whatever. You got 5-year-old, 10-year-old kids. Kids get snatched all the time. Put a chip in them. So you'll be able to find them. You know where they all are all the time. That's why when you call your daughter, well, baby, where you are? Oh, I'm at the movies. And you're looking at the address, and she's at some guy's house or somebody's house. Well, she's busted, because you can go over there and knock on the door now because she's right there. But the problem is, at 18, some of these kids will go ahead and get these chips removed, but will all of them? No, they won't. And after a few decades, it'll just become a normal thing, and nobody will think about it, and everybody will be chipped. And we'll all be walking around with some little, well, I won't, because I'll be dead and gone. But
our generation would never do that, man. Our generation
we
would
know
laugh.
better.
But these younger people, they don't care. They don't care what happens. They're so lost. They're stuck in social media hell, man.
And that, and the other thing, I was talking to a friend of mine about social media that day. I'm like, well, it says media. So how can they throw you off a post and stuff? Because media has got free speech. It's guaranteed under the Constitution. I'm not the one that named them social media. They did. So if it's media, then there should be no limitations on what you can say or you do. And Trump's suing them over that, so we'll see how that all works out. Matter of fact, I hear a couple of cases next year are going to be going to Supreme Court about this. Because they don't think you should be, that they should be able to tell you what to post. It always comes down to the same thing. Well, it's a private business, so therefore they can tell you what you can say and do. That's true to an extent. If you work for somebody, they can tell you if you got tattoos, they don't want to see them, that you have to cover them, that you can't wear your ear piercings or your nose piercings or your rings or stuff like that. They can tell you that. And they can tell you that you cannot curse. But that's about the extent of where they can go.
Can AT&T tell you you can't say certain things on your phone or Verizon?
No, they cannot, no.
Well, they're private corporations, right?
Yeah, so that's what we're saying. So even though Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and them are hiding, and TikTok and all them are hiding behind this is going to go away, people. Because big companies are like, whoa. See, what happened was Google is a really hardcore left-leaning company. And Google owns YouTube. Not TikTok. Twitter is so left that he don't even know where he is half the time. Facebook is not as much as it is left as it is just somewhere in the middle, but they're just kind of going along for the ride. But I noticed Mark Zuckerberg has started to lighten up on this, and he had told the whoever it is that looks over it to be careful of the way they're going with this, because Donald Trump's suing him over this now. Because in the end, Donald Trump, the courts proved that he wasn't involved with any insurrection. So therefore, what Jack and Mark did was illegal. They suspended him for something that they shouldn't have done it for. So we'll see how much money Trump gets out of this, and we'll see where the Supreme Court goes to stand on this. Because every time I hear the Supreme Court, I've heard 2 liberal justices and 2 conservative justices say the same thing, that they did not think that Facebook and Twitter should be telling anybody what they could say. If they had a problem with this, maybe they should close their platforms and redo them into something else. Maybe a music platform or a sharing platform, but not this kind of platform, because this is all about sharing who and what you are. And if you believe in a conspiracy, that's your right to say that. And if you're discussing back and forth with a couple of people what you think alternative medicine may be, Twitter and Facebook should not get involved in that conversation because they don't know if it's true or not. Nobody can, when we talking about alternative medicines, no one really knows. We're still learning about this. And there are natural medicines that do work. That's how a lot of these pharmacies come around. So I don't know how they're actually doing that. And this stuff about COVID was a joke. We got to ban them for this, we got to ban them for that. When their own CDC half the time didn't know what they were saying. And I didn't see them getting banned. Why didn't they ban Fauci when he said don't wear a mask? Question, huh, ladies? Or when they started saying, wear 3 masks, why didn't they ban him?
Now he's telling people to put the mask back on again.
That's what I'm saying. So you really don't know where the hell it's going. Hey, Michelle. Hey, David. Hey, Shan. So you don't really know what's going on with this. So it's the same thing with extraterrestrials. So I'm just waiting for Facebook to start saying, well, ET's not real, we're going to ban you. See, that the problem with them, for them, is that they can't prove it's not real. We may not be able to prove it's real, but they can't prove it's not. And trying to say there's not life in the universe is just an ignorant statement in the first place. Unless you're a God-fearing individual, which I don't think these people are, you can't go around saying ET doesn't exist because you don't know if they don't exist. And you don't even know if they're visiting this planet or not. There's as much evidence for as there is against, so I don't know how they're going to go around that one.
People have seen these things in the air for thousands of years, man. Well before technology, well before an Air Force, well before a DARPA. You know what I mean? So for anyone to say it doesn't exist, that's just ignorance.
It is, and the thing about it is why do? Sorry. Why would you even assume that? We have found, 300, 400 Earth-like planets now, which potentially have life on it. We found 26 planets that can view this planet now that possibly could have life on it. Just because we can't talk with them don't mean that they don't have the technology to come and go. We can't say that because we don't know. All we know is there's quite a few planets out there that could sustain life in a big-ass galaxy. And within our own sphere of influence, there seem to be quite a few planets now that can share life or have life. So for anybody who wants to make the statement that aliens don't exist, that's an ignorant statement. That's just completely ignorant because you just don't know if it's real or not. And if you ask any scientist, even NASA scientists, do you think extraterrestrial life exists? They'll all tell you yes. Every astronaut will tell you yes. Every scientist at NASA will tell you yes. Their argument is whether or not it's visiting this planet. That's where the argument is. It's not whether ET exists or not. It's whether ET comes here or not. That's the argument. And there is enough evidence to go both ways on this. So it's hard to just outright say it doesn't exist. And I'm waiting for Zuckerberg or Jack the Flack to start saying, oh, well, you can't talk about that. That's fake. But then if you start doing that, then, of course, you got to say ghosts aren't real. If you say aliens aren't real, you got to say ghosts aren't real. So you know how big of a niche that ufology and ghosties have on Facebook and Twitter? That'd be like half your audience gone. Just gone. Twitter's already lost all kind of countries because of banning the president. Other countries are like, no, if you're banning the president, you're not welcome here. Merkel started it out, but other countries have followed suit since then, saying, no, you're right. If you can ban Trump, you're going to ban anybody who says anything, and we're not going to go there. Because, a lot of these other countries, like the Mexican president, might go off on a rant. Or look at Putin. Putin might go off on a rant, or Xi Jinping might go on a rant. And then Facebook's going to ban them? Yeah, that's almost an act of war. You can't do that kind of crap. So,
well, they're playing games with people's free speech is what it is. They said they don't think they have to play the game, but they're a communications company. Let's face it, people communicate through them. It's that simple. They have a phone. They have a messenger. They have a daily way of talking. They encourage people to use the messenger and the phone. I've used that phone to call my friends in England.
And that's the other thing. Somebody the other day got banned for something they said in a messenger. Messenger's supposed to be a private chat. Facebook's not even supposed to be looking at that. So that's going to be another lawsuit. I'm pretty sure they're already suing them over this. A messenger is just like your phone call, people. It's not your open Facebook page. It's a messenger. It's like any other messenger out there. It's supposed to be between you and the person you're talking to. Facebook's not supposed to be looking at that. So they've already broke the law there.
Zuckerberg would put a camera in your bathroom, right in your toilet, man. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. Mm-hmm. He's not Mr. Human rights. None of these people are. They're billionaires, is what they are. They're arrogant billionaires.
And that's one of the downsides of having the libtards in office right now. At least when the other guy was in office, he was going after him. That's one of the reasons he got banned in the first place, because he was going after him. He thought what they were doing was totally illegal. And in case you ought to notice, ladies and gentlemen, there's a provision from the Pentagon that says that no media, and when a president speaks, no media can ban him, period. That his speech overrides anything in the country at any given time he wants to speak. So actually, Facebook and Twitter broke the law. So we'll see how that plays out, too, because I know that's one of the things he's going to go after him for. Because it clearly says that you cannot block the president of the United States from speaking, whatever it may be. And I don't know who Zuckerberg or Peter is to think that, and it wasn't even them. It was some little trolls on their networks that did it. It wasn't even Zuckerberg or Jack. It was just these little Facebook watchers that said, oh, no, the president can't say that. And I guarantee they're all liberals. And if he finds out they are, Trump's going to own their ass. Trump might be the new owner of Facebook when this is said and done. Because if they let some little company that's nobody's full of liberals do this, then they discriminate against the president of the United States. And I don't know how that's going to play out in the court, my friends. I wouldn't want to be losing into that one. Trump ain't got as much money as Mark does, but he got more pull than Mark does. So we'll see how it goes. And if you don't believe me, have y'all seen these rallies lately? Don't get me wrong, people. I didn't vote for Trump, if anybody writes to me. But have y'all seen these rallies? I have not seen Biden pull a crowd over 1,000 anyway, even when he was running for office.
No,
Every time I'm watching Trump in Miami, it's 50,000 people there. And then all of a sudden you look out in the ocean and there's just 5,000 boats out there with people on. I'm like, Jesus. And he lost. And I found out just yesterday that he pulled 30% of his Hispanic vote and 22% of the black vote and 32% of Hispanic vote. He's up 10% on both of them. No president that pulled that many blacks or Hispanics ever lost before. And he also had more votes than any president before him. But he still lost to Biden somehow, a guy who wouldn't leave his basement and never could get a crowd over 1,000 or 2,000 people. And we haven't seen that with Hillary. They were trying to cheat with Hillary, and they wouldn't show you the sides until later on that somebody broke the pictures out. They only showed the middle where the crowd was. And he had 10 times the crowd she did, and he won. So you just got to kind of wonder what actually went on there. But in today's government, that's what I'm saying. This just proves what we're saying about UFOs. You can't even get them to come forward with the president of the United States, and you think they're going to come out with extraterrestrials and tell us the truth? No, they're not. I mean, you can't get the truth out of them about what's going on in Washington. We can't even find out why the Capitol Police were pulled off of duty during the day of the riots. But yet, when Black Lives Matter was there, they quadrupled the amount of police there. And Nancy Pelosi's in charge of that. So you just got to kind of wonder what went on there. So if that kind of stuff's going on, what hope do we have of ever getting to extraterrestrials?
None.
Maybe if we had a cleaner political system, we would have a chance. But God,
maybe if they land somewhere and pop the hatch and say, you know what, well, we're ready to do some interviews. But even then, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, even then they'll be saying, "Oh, it was fake. Look at that. Oh, Biden faked it. Biden faked it. Faked it." Even I don't know why he would fake it, but
Biden's got his own trouble with China right now, and others, Russia, China, everybody. All these people when Trump was in there said, "Oh, it's gonna be World War III. We're all gonna die." And now Biden's in there, and he's actually the one who's causing all this trouble. But he's causing trouble by being weak. So it's not a political show. I don't want to get all political, but
no, we don't. It's just. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, he can't handle that, but yet he's going to give us disclosure on ET.
Right.
I just don't see it. And remember, this was funny the other day. I heard, what's the redheaded chick? I never can remember.
Zaki.
Yeah. So she says the other day.
Crazy name.
So she says the other day, she said, "Oh, Biden's the one that released this UFO." Really? No, that's not true. See, that's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. She comes right out and lies. First, she said last week that the other party wanted the police to get fired. No, we all know it's Democrats. It's been all over for 6 months. So she came out right out and lied about that. And then yesterday she comes out and lies about the UFO thing, saying, no, Biden is the one putting this in. No, he's not. Trump signed it into the bill in the last $1 trillion disclosure package. I mean, the last health package. So I'm just saying, I mean, we can't even get the truth out of him about that, much less what ET's doing here.
Right.
It just only reason we brought this up, ladies and gentlemen, is to prove the point that, if you watch the political section of our country right now, trying to lie to each about what's going on between each other, there's no shot that we're going to get any truth about ET. I wish they would. Maybe it would be a distraction from the day-to-day politics in our country. Maybe y'all should look, if y'all listening to us tonight, maybe y'all should think about that. Disclose ET, and that will be a distraction for the rest of the world while you go off and do whatever the hell y'all doing. It would keep us occupied anyway, but that's not what y'all want. Y'all just want to keep everything a secret.
Yep. Unless they truly don't know anything, but I don't believe that for a second.
Well, I don't think they know as much as some of my fellow researchers think they do, because I've talked to a few people over the years that suggest that they don't. And then the other problem is it's so compartmentalized. So I was talking with Brandon Cooper, who used to be at the Pentagon, and we got to talking about this. He said, Joe, it's a nightmare. He said, I asked UFO. He said, go see Bob. So I go see Bob. Bob said, oh, yeah, I'm in charge of sightings. And he said, we might think these sightings may have legit. But he don't know anything else. And he said, well, then you got to go down and see Jack. So anyway, you have to go see like 100 different people and then put the piece of the puzzles together that you got to get a half-ass kind of picture. Because they got it so compartmentalized, they don't want anybody holding the truth.
Yeah.
Because they're scared. Like Paul Hellyer came out from Canada and started yapping. Or Nick Pope came out from the Brits and started yapping. They're scared that somebody from the U.S. might do that.
Right.
Which no one has yet. So I've always said this. It's amazing. The only country that might know the truth, no one ever seems to leak anything. But the countries that probably don't know the truth, we're constantly getting leakers out of the government. I don't know. Whoever said that, I don't think Brits know that much. I don't think they know that much. I don't think China does. I don't
think the Brits know anything, man. I'm not insulting anybody there. I'm saying the government. I think that you know what? They know what we give them. I don't think they do independent investigations themselves. Maybe back in the day they started to. I know they had a whole division for it, and then it probably still exists in some level. But I don't think they divert a lot of funds to this kind of research. They more leave it to the U.S. It seems like we're in the forefront. We are.
And this irritated Putin. I know to say this. But one of the reporters last year asked him about extraterrestrials, and he said, no, disclosure will have to come from the United States. He said, if anybody knows the most, they do. He said, they've been collecting evidence. He knew about Project Science, Project Grudge, Project Blue Boy, and the latest one that we've got running. So, he's quite familiar with this.
Well, we were trying to play keep up with them for remote viewing and all that when they got into it, and then we got into it, So that's the race, though. We've been racing back and forth, right?
Yeah, well, we had, what was his name? Ed Dames, who was in charge of remote viewing for the U.S. government. And they did a good job. And I had been saying this for 2 decades, remote viewing is great, but it's not what you need. You need telepaths. Remote viewers are limited to what they can see. Telepaths are not. And the difference is, people, remote viewing is exactly what it says. It's remote viewing. You're in a location, you get a blank thing, and you remote view it. So you may see like the door, you may see the ship, you might see the missile, you might even see the code. But that's not how telepaths work. Telepaths actually is seen through the individual's eyes. So you'll see the codes, the doorknob codes, the whole 9 yards. It's just a whole different thing. So I think it was in 2000 or 2001, the United States and the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force closed their remote viewing programs and opened up telepathy programs. And that's where they've been ever since. So they officially closed, and Ed Dames went on Coast to Coast several times and talked about this. Y'all go find them yourself, and told everybody why they closed them, because they needed telepaths. What bothered me about this is why you didn't use both. So let's say you got Ed Dames' crew. They find the missile, okay? Well, maybe they can't see the code to the missile, but they know where the missile is and they know where it's located. So then you go get your telepath to find somebody who works there to get you the codes to the missile. So now you can actually stop the launch of the missile, or you can make it self-destruct in space. So I didn't understand why they didn't keep both. And maybe they did, just didn't tell us about it. But they officially closed his group, the Ed Dames one. They had, I think, 20 or 30 remote viewers on there. And they officially closed it, and then they came out with the new telepathy program.
I talked about him last night on Discovery Paranormal. He became a gambler, man, a remote viewer, and he would go, and I guess he was pretty successful. He and the other people on the team. They got left out in the cold.
Yeah, they did. They just got tossed.
Yeah, they closed the program. They're like, bye. And they were like, hey, wait a minute. After they've been doing it for so long,
And they did it. And people, in case you notice, this was like a 22 or 25-year program. This wasn't just something that happened. It may have been even longer than that.
I think 72 to 95.
It might be. And that's what I'm saying. It was a long program that they were using quite often. And then somewhere along the line, maybe they were listening to one of my shows one night and heard me bitching about why we're using telepaths. And because, telepaths are much more functional than remote viewers, so they can just see more. They can also sense and hear more. It's like being in possession of someone's body without actually taking control. You're just in there watching and listening to everything that's going on.
Project Phoenix.
And so that's why the Air Force and Navy switched programs. And but I still would have kept both programs. If it would have been me personally, I would have kept both because I find a use for remote viewers, whereas maybe the military didn't. I see where they can be useful to help the telepaths, so the telepaths don't have to do as much. So, once you find something, a location of a base or a location of a missile launch or whatever, then you can send your telepaths in. But the remote viewers will have already done the legwork for the telepath. They might even be able to identify the individual that the telepath needs to hook up with. But for some reason, Chris Watts told me, and he's part of the program, he told me that the reason they did it is he said most telepaths can remote view. I said, maybe. I didn't exactly, I didn't quite feel as, because I know a lot of telepaths. One of the things we test for in our organization is telepathy and empath abilities. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Usually a telepath is just what it is. It's a telepath. They can listen, hear, see. But a lot of times, so if they're in the sky and they're walking around the base, they don't necessarily see where the missiles are. They might know what the codes to the missiles are, but they don't necessarily see where they're located, whereas the remote viewer will actually see the physical location. So I figured use both. The government knows more than I do, so they decided to go with one.
Well, they use these remote viewers to map out the moon and Mars, other places to the Soviet Union. I mean, when the secret rooms and all that other stuff,
Or maybe the remote viewers had used everything they needed. Maybe the government had got everything they needed out of them, and that's why they switched to television. It's hard to say why they switched. I mean, I understand using television. I truly do understand that. But I don't understand giving up the other program completely. That never made sense to me. It really never made, because they're different things. I mean, people always want to put the two together, but they're not. They're separate, different things. Remote viewing is one thing. Telepathy is another thing. Just like being an empath is a separate thing, or telekinesis is a different thing. They may all live in that realm, but they're all individually different things that you have to have control of. And I've never met anybody that had full function of all of them. As a matter of fact, I've only ever met one person that was a telekinesis in my entire life, and their abilities were very limited, like sliding quarters or making spoons fall over, knocking glasses over, but they couldn't squeeze that artery in the brain to kill you. And this is how you know that telekinesis doesn't really exist on our planet, because Putin's still alive, Biden's still alive, Trump's still alive, Xi Jinping is still alive. Because if we had somebody had telekinesis, what we would do is they would just all of a sudden, Xi Jinping would have this shooting pain in his head, and he would have an aneurysm burst, and he'd be dead, and it would look like a natural thing. You couldn't blame it on anybody. He'd just
you have thousands of witches that went after Trump. Then that didn't really work.
Yeah, I don't think Trump even cared. That kind of made you witches look bad, by the way. Someone said, "We got him out of office." I said, "No, you didn't." I said, they cheated to get him out of office. I said, "You didn't get him out."
He was voted out of office.
I said, yeah, y'all have nothing to do with that.
It was no mysterious thing.
Yeah, I said, it's not like y'all made his head explode or his wife explode or anything like that.
If it wasn't for COVID, he would have won.
Yeah, we would have won a landslide, because before COVID, his ratings were through the roof.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if that's exactly what happened, because now that
they blamed him for the economy loss. They played the game.
Yeah. But now that I've seen the the voter reports out of Arizona and Pittsburgh, it's looking like there may have been some monkey business going on.
Pittsburgh.
ET's out, and ET. That's another thing. Somebody asked me the other day, well, why did ET intervene on who's going to be president? I said, because they don't care. They have no interest in our politics at all. They just don't care.
Do you care what goes on in an ant farm? You could give a crap what goes on. You might have a look in once in a while. You might check out the ants, but
I still wouldn't care what their politics at an ant farm was. What the
I don't even care what people do.
That's the thing. I don't really care about.
Don't care what they think, what they do. People get so, because of the whole fake outrage era, people get so incensed when you dismiss what they say.
Oh,
You dismiss what they say, they get flipped out, man. Like, oh my god! I'm like, well, I don't take you seriously. You're freaking clowns, man.
so,
They don't come from any kind of knowledge. They come
and
from
these races, these ETs have been here a long time, taking care of people on this planet.
yeah.
So, and no, it doesn't seem. Maybe back in the Egyptians and Sumerian days, they may have interfered some, but since then, they just doesn't seem like they got involved.
I think like maybe gave a spark. Like a couple weeks ago, I did a show about the Ant people and how they took the Hopi Indian underground, and not just them, others too. Others, the people that heard the song in their head, and they went to a certain place and they took them underground, and then they saved them from the cataclysms, and then they taught them about stars and math and how to build. This is going back 17, 18,000 years ago, somewhere around there, when people were using chicken bones as tools. So I mean, this is like advanced technology, man. But take a look at the Hopi Indian, the Caco Canyon in New Mexico, and the design. It looks like a spaceship. It looks like something from Star Wars, man. I mean, it's incredible what they built, and not far from there is the Aztecs. So look at these civilizations. I think that they got to spark. I mean, people were shepherded into a certain direction, given rules on how to live, what to do, what not to do, guidance. Right? I mean, it's pretty obvious.
You've got at least a dozen Native American tribes talking about people from above and aliens. Almost all these South American Aztecs, Mayans, Incans, and the Toltecs all were into this. So, I mean, pretty much all of the Americas lean towards this. And if you go look at Africa and even in Europe and all, you're going to find the same thing. So,
in Caco Canyon, that's where they all came together. And then the Anasazi, was there, and they also started like relating to different tribes, the Navajo and the Apache and all the people from the area. It was actually a place for all of them to gather and like do the meet and greet and get together and have their town hall, as it were. But all of this came from advanced technology. None of this happened before that. None of it. So think about that.
And so you got all this stuff that from the ancient world that suggests visitation. And it always cracks me up because I always tell people the same thing when they ask me where they should start investigating. I always tell them in the past. Because really, when you look at the Egyptians or the Sumerians or even the Chinese, a lot of the tribes out of Africa, a lot of the stuff out of South America, I mean, you have the Nastics down there building these great lines and these things you can only see from space. And then they started boarding their children so their heads would look more like the gods, the extraterrestrials. And it's just weird to me that people don't pay attention to that.
Right.
First off, why do you build anything you can only see from space? Because you can't even see them from the mountainside. You can only see them from an aircraft. And so
they've got all the petroglyphs in New Mexico around about these aliens. I mean, like they drew aliens, man. They look like spacesuits,
So you just got to wonder why no one pays attention to this. Why aren't they, okay, that makes sense. That could be ET. Honestly, I think for most part, most humans do not want to think that we're not alone. People always tell me, "Oh, I wish we knew we weren't alone." No bullshit, you don't. You're scared. You're scared that there might be a more advanced race.
Alone. I'm alone. I'll tell you though, man. When you listen to these elders talk, and they from these ant people, from these people that look like ants, obviously, they tell the story on the two paths that you can take. And then it was important. The ant people stressed the path that stays away from the megalomania and the desire and all the big money and all that, the whole greed to exceed thing, and stay on your spiritual path. But if that's the message from this ET, stay on your spiritual path, that's pretty intense right there.
And you know what? Some contactees say that's what it is, and some contactees say that's BS. And it's hard to say because, if you, this is the hard thing. And I always tell people all the time about this. You have to judge aliens by their actions. Okay. So in some actions, they seem like they're here to help and keep us, safe. But some actions are not so. I mean,
maybe that's not the same group. Maybe there's different groups, and some of them are assholes and some of them are not,
Maybe it's just they play favoritism. Probably be more like, because it seems like, you don't really even hear about the gray aliens until more recent history. The reptilians and the human aliens you hear about since the start of man. You hear about them all through there. I mean, the reptilians. Matter of fact, this is what's so weird. In the old world, the reptilians were the bearers of good stuff, not bad stuff. Even the Mesoamericans and the Europeans and the Native Africans believed they were bearers of good stuff. It wasn't until the time of Christ that changed. It changed after the time of Christ because, of course, who gave Eve the apple? A reptilian, a serpent. And after that, they became the evil ones. But if you listen to the Dogon or the Egyptians or the Sumerians or anybody else, the Toltecs, the Mayans, the Aztecs, they didn't believe that. They really believed the reptilians were here to save us and help us. And if you go by the Sumerian stories, it's exactly what they did. They brought us out of slavery into being what we are today. And that's why we all have a reptilian section in our brain. I had a guy just 2 weeks ago screaming at me. I was doing an interview on for the KTX or anyway. I was doing this interview and this guy's just screaming at me. No, man, we don't have a reptilian section in our brain. I said, oh, yeah, we do. I said, every human on this planet has a reptilian. I said, it's what makes you who you are, dude. I said, it's not necessarily what makes you aggressive, but it's what makes you who you are. It's what makes you get out there and challenge the universe and say, hey, what the hell are you screwing with me for? Or why am I here? That's where that comes from. And we don't like to talk about it, but it is true. And he's just screaming, no. I said, look, dude. I said, you got a computer in front of you? He said, yeah. I said, type in reptilian section in your brain. That's all you got to do. So I hear him. I said, what's the matter? He said, oh, I said, dude, what's the matter? He said, I said, come on, dude. I said, I know what you're reading because I can see it on my screen. I said, tell me what you're reading. He's like, God, you're right. I said, of course I am, dude. I wouldn't even brought it up if it wasn't. I said, I'm not like your fellow ufologists out there. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to tell you what I know, and you can check it out for yourself, and that's what it's going to be. I said, I'm not going to tell you information that's not real. I said, it's one of the reasons my organization still has respect. It's one of the reasons my company still has respect after Katrina. I said, because I'm going to tell you like it is, and then you can take it for whatever it is. And unfortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we do have a reptilian section in our brain. And it is important to us. It really makes a difference in who and what we are. According to the Sumerians, before the reptilians came along, we were a very placid civilization. We did what we were told. We could plow the fields. We could procreate. We could make meat and shit like that. But we never asked why we were here or why we had to do all this. We never challenged them as a slave race. We were just a slave race. And the reptilians changed that. According to Sumerians, they used to come in and steal the women, rape the women. The women would have children, and those children were born different. They were more aggressive. They were more self-aware. They wanted to know why they had to be doing this. Why couldn't y'all do this? Why did they have to do it? And eventually they overthrew the Sumerians. Part of the Egyptian race. The Egyptians say the same thing. So do the Dogon. You got three civilizations that existed for almost 6,000 years, and they're all telling you the same thing, that these two races were here. But yet we're still going to argue about it 6,000 years later. And maybe it's the onset of religion. I mean, a lot of stuff gets blamed on religion. You know, everybody says because of modern religion, it held us back 1,000 to 1,500 years, which may be true. The Middle Ages alone said they set it back 500 years. The burning of Alexander set us back almost 1,000 years. So if we'd have just let ET have its way, we'd be at least 2,000 years more advanced today. But no, we cowed and bowed to religious sects. Now, I'm not telling you your religion is wrong or not true, or your God or your demon's not true. But because of them, we are behind, way further than we should be.
Ignorance, man.
You know,
it's ignorance.
I mean, look at them in the Middle East. They've been burning books and monuments in the Middle East for 4 years now. That's setting everybody there back. They're not going to know the truth. None of these kids are going to know their history now. They're going to be taught whatever the hell the Taliban or whoever's in control wants to teach them. They're trying to do that in our own country. They're trying to do away with history and rewrite it. No, man, no. You don't do away with history, because if you do away with history, you don't learn. You forget and you repeat your mistakes.
Yep.
So why do it, people? You know, go out
because
there.
People are stupid.
I'd go out and shake E.T.'s hand if I was y'all. Welcome into your house. Tell them, come on down and leave them some cookies and milk. They prefer chocolate chip, by the way. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I heard, who was it told me that time they like strawberry ice cream? That was on one of those TV shows. God, I can't.
For all you know, they can like cat turds, man.
That's it. You don't really know. And I mean, from what we've been told about the Greys, they seem to absorb their food through an osmosis type thing, through their skin. So I'm not thinking, maybe back in the days, because they do have teeth. So maybe back in the day they did like ice cream. I don't know.
A little recycled meow mix. That was going on.
I know. And well, your dogs sure like that. So I mean, maybe they do.
Hey, man, dogs love that.
So I'm just saying, I mean, you don't really, for us, when you talk about the human aliens or the reptilian aliens or the gray aliens, one, the grays are so alien to us that there's no telling what it is. The reptilians, well, we see what reptilians eat on our own planet, so I'm not thinking their diet's going to be all that much different.
Exactly.
And then, the human aliens, maybe they prefer a different diet, but no, Keith, they don't eat us. Let me put it this way. I've never seen any evidence that they eat us. I'm not saying there could be a race out there that might not think we taste good. I haven't seen any evidence.
There are people that eat people.
Yeah, they are.
So
And that was something we were talking about last night. All those Canadian children that were unburied, them natives, they said there was gnaw marks on their bones and stuff that looked like human teeth. Hey, look, you can't. You see, that's the thing. You can't never know what's going on. And here we are in our own world, in our own countries, and we still can't figure out what happened to these kids. And we're wondering what we know about ET. I mean, there's so many sects in our country of things that we don't understand or know that it's not even funny anymore. And then we're going to say that we know more about ET than we know about those things. That's not true. There are a few of us out there that know quite a bit about extraterrestrials, but even them they're still limited. So if I was to take everything I knew for the last 40 years, which is probably more than most of the people in the field know, it's still just a drop in the bucket. I mean, I've researched about 28 agendas. From what I understand, there's 100 or more. And then it's like the black-eyed children thing. So when I started listening to people talk about the black-eyed children, it's they're demons or this, or that, the other thing. I'm like, okay, well, that works for me. I didn't know. I mean, I'm not a paranormal person.
Yeah, they're out in Iowa, man. They're out in the cornfield.
So all of a sudden, we get these groups. Like we had about 25 contactees come back and say no, that they're just another race, that they're abducted just like us, and you see them on board the ships, and sometimes they're here with them while the abductions are going on. Just like sometimes we're there when they're going on. Well, that may be true, but that doesn't negate that some of them may be some kind of paranormal entity. It's just those might be some type of aliens. Matter of fact, they're supposed to look just like us, but they have these weird black eyes. You can't negate it. I mean, you can't prove it, but you can't negate it either.
Yeah.
But ET
I hear you, man.
Yeah, there's so many things on the planet today that suggest ET was here. So many drawings, so many countries, so many just areas. I mean, just in America, when you talk to the Native Americans, they really, really hardcore believe in ET, or the sky spirits, as they call them. But they really
because they've had so many dealings with them, man. Exactly. Look at the Skinwalker, right? All these sightings of the Skinwalker that I know of was between Shiprock, from Farmington to Shiprock down to Gallup in New Mexico. Now people are like, "Oh, Utah Skinwalker Ranch." Let me tell you, man. The skinwalkers, the shapeshifters, the witches, and whatever, go on these Native American blog sites, and you'll see people share. I mean, I read it on the air a couple weeks ago by the skinwalkers. They share their stories of driving on that road and what they saw, their parents, their grandparents, for years, what they saw. So why is it there? What's the deal with that? How come people aren't investing? You know what? That highway used to be Route 666, man, and they named it apropos. It's a freaky road, but there's volcanoes over there. There's all kinds of stuff. I don't know. But they appear, they can run super fast speeds, and they chase people's cars down. And that was a story that guy shared with my friend that I shared with people. And he was driving on that road, headed down towards Gallup. So what's up with that?
See, there's a lot of weird shit like that goes on. A good friend of mine used to live out in Arizona, way out in the desert. And one night she's driving through New Mexico I think it was Interstate 25 up there, I think it is. And she's cruising along. She said, I see this glowing light, and my dog starts hooping and hollering at it. And she's like, what the hell is it? So Stupid decides to pull over on a highway. So she pulls over on a highway, the dog's yapping, she gets out the car. Next thing she knows, it's morning, like 7 a.m. Well, this was like 2 a.m. when she pulled over the car.
Yeah.
She has no recollection of anything. And the dog was passed out in the back seat. When she looked back there, she's like, what the hell? But she has no idea what happened to her. Even on the regression, there's hardly any memory.
You got hundreds of square miles of nothing, man, of mountain ranges there. I mean, when you go, I drove down 25 through Colorado, which went down through New Mexico. It goes through Raton Pass. I mean, that whole area is ripe. But what's even crazier is that my father was born and grew up in this place called Eagle Nest in New Mexico, and he was like 50 when they had me. You know what I mean? So I mean, this is going back to 1919 when he was born there. That's a long time ago. And you often wonder, like these experiences that people had, especially back then with ET, because the whole area was ripe with it. The Native Americans talk about it very freely, and these stories not just are in their families, they reenact them through dance. It has become part of their culture. It's beyond just some simple belief, or an idea.
Well, it has too, and it is part of their culture, which makes it even more
I'm
interesting.
going to be out there, dude. Within 2 weeks, I'm going to be out there, and I'm looking to talk to people. I already got this guy lined up who is a shaman, and then he's the healer of their people. And then he sees ET all the time. Well, UFOs, they see that it's very common. Very common. Like to them, it's no surprise at all. But the more the point is, what's the purpose? What's the purpose? You know, I think that we're not going to be satisfied as investigators until we actually get the conversation with ET to understand what they're all about and that type of thing. If they can even communicate with us, right?
It is actually, yeah. No, sorry, it's answering this. Um, it's just, I don't know.
I'm gonna,
It's a tough
dude. I'm,
place.
I'm gonna go live on that highway. It's called like 491 now. They changed the name. It goes right through Navajo territory. It didn't used to be Navajo. It used to be Hopi until they had the Native Americans. They had massive wars with each other. Which took tons of land from each other. And then they all
Yeah.
settled in a Catco Canyon. Look at those pictures. Put those pictures up for people of Catco Canyon, of the Hopi Indians, what they built there. And this was after the Ant people. If that doesn't look like it's a UFO or a structure like that, I don't know what. I don't. But the shapes of it, the way it feels, man. Just look at the thing; it's crazy. And that's not what they had learned about building the apartments into the cliffs and what. This is something in of itself. And it was also much bigger at one time. It almost looks like it was made for something to land on top of it because it's got these huge circles that don't seem to have any rhyme or reason. And the thing is enormous. It's enormous.
Yeah, that's. I just put it up on the screen. It is, and when you go through these, see, that's looking at it from a different view. But there's lots of these, and you could say they were different things. And some people say, oh, well, they were sweat lodges, or they were for storing grain, and just the tops are missing. And I would believe that. But if you look at this, there's no place for a top.
This was the design that they were taught when they came into this current world that they're in. After the Ant people, this is what the Ant people, they didn't build stuff like this before that. So this was something that they learned that happened after the fact. And the shapes, the geometric designs, I'm telling you, this is well beyond the Hopi Indian at that time of those thousands of years. And then it became the meeting place for these tribes. And the Anasazi is very big. If you look at Ancient Aliens, they reference the Anasazi all the
See,
time.
like this one's got inside support walls. It's got
Yeah.
for extra support, like something was sitting on top of it. You got different shapes. You got different ones. It's a shame that so much of it has gone, to the wayside over the years. But
It erodes, and they're not far from there. There's an Aztec a little northeast is Aztec development that I'm going to visit also.
it's a beautiful country. Yeah, a couple of my friends are regulars. They will hang out there fairly regular, and that's a beautiful shot right there. But like with Nathan, he does he does a lot of stuff up in Utah. He goes through Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. He goes and looks at a lot of these areas, trying to get film or maybe catch something while he's out there. And that's the way to do it. You never know what you're going to run into when you're out there,
Yeah.
especially if you meant to run into something.
I'm going to go live on that route, man. I'm going to do the route, and then I'm going to put myself in that skinwalker head. I'm going to do it in the fucking middle of the night, 'cause I want to get some like kind of cool desert photography at night. I have really fast lenses, so it captures it captures all the light around. A fast lens just means that it has a really low f-stop, so it can catch a lot of light. But you can get the stars and all that, and it's really cool. So, but I want to see what happens, man. I want to be on that road. I want to see what happens with these skinwalkers.
I used to use Kodak 400 film for that. It was really, really good for that. It's high speed film, but It's these days everybody's using digital this, digital that, digital this.
Go to Google Maps and look at the area. It starts with the four corners and it goes out. So when you look at that whole area, there is something about that area. It goes through Utah and Colorado and New Mexico, the whole thing. Just very, very, Arizona too. It's mystical, man. I was just in Arizona up there in Park. Where was that? Right by Utah, man. Like right on the borderline. Back in September. And those roads, you could feel the energy there, and it's also a lot of
all throughout there you can.
But there's tons of minerals out there. There's things that can be utilized. I don't know, man. It's just very interesting, and then there's so much land. Nobody knows what's out there all in those canyons. All in all, I mean, a lot of it hasn't even been explored. Really, it's not accessible. It's inaccessible, especially in Utah.
To me, it's all been strange because anytime we go out there, we were in Colorado about 3 years back, and I stopped by to check on some of the Pueblo stuff while we were out there. I think it was in Pueblo Cameron somewhere. But while we were there, an old guy comes riding, an old Indian guy. He goes, "Hey, Sean," he comes up and just starts talking to us, and he starts telling us about the area, what's going on. Out of the blue. Didn't know me from Bean. I could have been an axe murderer as far as the guy knew. And but he stopped. He spoke really good English, definitely Native American. He said he was descendants of the Pueblo, but now they call themselves something else. But
it's Pueblo.
And he goes, he's just going on and on and on and on about the area and the different things they used to see. And I forgot who it was. Joe says, "Have you ever seen extraterrestrials or ETs?" He said, "Yeah, they used to come all the time." He said, if you listen to our ancestors' lores and speech, he said they talked about them all the time. They used to come on a regular visit. They would come out. Because he said they used to come visit because they considered them non-aggressive to the aliens, not necessarily non-aggressive to each other, but they were non-aggressive to the aliens. They wanted to intermingle with them, and he talked in great deal about it. He said from time to time they would take I guess it would be like the guy who's going to be the next chief. Sometimes they would take him somewhere else. He said a couple of times he felt. He said from the lore, he had the distinct feeling that from time to time they would just take whole villages, which kind of makes a little sense because there are several places on the planet where mass groups of people just disappeared, and for no reason.
I want to know where they went to when they went underground because it's around there somewhere. It's out there somewhere. And I'm sure that, they covered it up and whatever. I mean, shiprock is the rock that sticks out of the ground is actually a pyroplastic plug down to the volcano, and it connects to that super volcano out there. So think of the energy think of the energy that comes from something like that,
But think of this a different way. Maybe they were bringing them underground. When they went to sleep, they just beamed their asses off to somewhere else and then brought them back later on. We don't know. I mean, I'm just because
every great leader had a visit. And you look at Muhammad and the Archangel Gabriel, who took him around the earth, then showed him future civilizations, then took him out in the universe and showed him other civilizations. Man, that's pretty deep. And Muhammad wrote about this very specifically.
It's just effing crazy, is what it is, and for us, and then we want to ignore that. So the white man. Well, I can't say the white man because I'm part Native American, but whatever man decided to ignore this stuff. Hey, Joseph. For some reason, they were just like, no, we're going to ignore this kind of stuff. Now, not to say everybody today ignores it, but a good chunk of the world, and it doesn't matter what color you are, you seem to ignore it like this. And I've noticed in South America where, when I was a kid, South Americans were really steeped in this stuff. And I noticed it's starting to, as South America becomes more of a first world country, or first world, it's starting to fade away. So a lot of people want to blame it as just stuff, third worlders or second worlders believe because they simply didn't understand the universe. Well, that's bullshit. And if that's true, then I guess religious would fall into the same category, right? It's just, for the ignorant. So, I don't agree with that at all, by the way, but
easily controlled. Humans love to be controlled. They love to be complacent. Look at the men in Canada, for instance.
They like to be controlled.
You got some strong women up there, and then the men become all
scary women up there.
Then they become all effeminate and
Speaking of Canadians, coming up next is the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia
Oh.
Pisano. Their guest tonight is Dr. Rita Lewis. I don't want to get them two Canadians on my ass, so we'll throw that plug in real quick.
Two very strong
Yes,
Canadian women.
They are very strong women, and they definitely believe what they believe. And be sure to come check them out. It's Outer Realm, Michelle DeRoche, Amelia Pisano coming up at 8 o'clock, and their guest is Dr. Rita Lewis. And remember, that's one of the shows up for People's Choice Awards, so get your ass over there and
Vote.
That's all y'all going to hear for the next month. Vote. I got a special guest going to be coming on. I'm not going to tell y'all his name. She's a friend of mine. We go way back, and she's going to be coming on with me in a couple of weeks. And she's very she's got that kind of shaman feel about herself, and she's very in tune with nature and the universe around her. And her and I have talked to aliens on many times because she's definitely been taken over the years. And she's a very interesting character, but she'll be coming on in about 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And
you mean Hillary Clinton?
Oh God, no.
She's coming.
You know what? Somebody asked me that the other day. Would I interview Hillary Clinton? And I was thinking no. And they're like, why? I said, because I'd end up dead. And they're like, why? I said, because the questions I'd ask her would definitely get me shot. I said, I probably wouldn't make it through the whole damn interview. Somebody knocking on my door.
I used to didn't like her. Now I'm quite fond of her as a world-class assassin, man.
Yeah, she is, man. She's part of Assassin Guild. She's
earned my respect.
If y'all believe me, Assassin Guild, this young lady, this old lady's probably running the damn thing. It's just amazing how many people have died around her.
Hundreds.
I don't think she's an alien. I think she's just
hundreds.
An evil human. Yeah,
hundreds. Look at Seth Rich. What the hell happened to him, man?
I think currently they give her credit for 126 deaths.
No, 200 and
it's going up more.
257. I was just looking at the list the other day. I was like, oh my God.
It's going up. Well, when we talk, we'll bring it up. So we'll get more in detail when we talk to y'all on
It's
Friday.
aliens that did it, though. Aliens.
It's aliens, all right. The aliens probably scared of her. That's probably why she don't get taken.
Bill's an alien. He was actually the last decent president we had, honestly.
He was. He him and Reagan seemed to set the world together and change the world. And then for some reason after that, it's been just shit after shit after shit.
In the toilet.
I can't tell y'all. I'm not going to get into each one. I'll tell y'all what. Come see us Friday, and we'll talk more about it, people.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that.
We'll be talking about how evil they were, but where we're headed in the future. But it is a strange thing on how this all works, and it is strange the fact that that ET just seems to be, all everywhere in our old culture. When you go pre-Christ, ET is everywhere. And they talk about the humans and the reptilians and the Greys. Not the Greys they talk about less until more modern times, but they talked about them everywhere. And then Christ came along, and it just seemed to stop. And you had three really fundamental religions. You had the Jewish religion was already there. You had the Muslim religions, and then Christianity broke itself into Catholic and Baptist and 5 or 6 other things. So it's a dominant religion. It's almost 2 billion followers, and the Muslims are about 1.25 billion. Yeah. I think the Jews are around 500. So that's why I tell people all the time when they tell me, "Oh, we're ready for ET." Really? There's 6 billion of us that are still practicing hardcore religion. Even if you want to believe what our government says, and only 50% of Americans practice religion, go ahead. But in the South, everybody I know believes in God, and half of them ones are going to church. So I'm just saying, people, it's not quite what everybody thinks it is. We're not quite there to discuss. I'm there. Mike's there. Everybody in this network is there, but that's an exception to the rule.
That's only a handful of people in the world.
We're just a spot, and we're definitely an exception to the rule. But because we're all well researched.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the world, who are scared to talk about this, and I'll watch a couple of my older friends. They'll watch TV. They go, "Oh, Joe, I've seen you on TV, or I've seen such and such deal, an alien this, alien that." And they don't believe it. They're just laughing at it. Just trying to laugh it off. And I'm like, yeah, well, when somebody comes with your mom or your grandson, then we'll see how you're laughing. And they're like, wait, what, and what? And I'm like, people, it's a serious topic. There's definitely proof that, there's definitely proof that ETC. And I say this all the time. Somebody said, I love this one. You can't prove ETC. I said, I can go to any court in the country or any country and prove the existence of extraterrestrials, and I will win the case every time. I said, it's not that there's not proof. I said, what y'all want is a dead alien or a spacecraft. I said, there's lots of proof that proves the existence of extraterrestrials. That's not what y'all want. I said, any law case. Matter of fact, there was 2 cases where it was taken to court and was won. So, yes, in court you can prove this because people say you always need extraordinary evidence for extraordinary claims. Well, saying that there's life in the universe is not an extraordinary claim.
Yeah.
Just look at the universe. Are we here? That's right off the bat.
Look at
That's
the
the first thing I
Earth.
said.
The variations of life on the Earth alone. Think about it.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine who was a judge told me, he goes, well, Joe, how are you going to prove life in the universe? I said, we exist. And he looked at me like, I said, do we exist? He said, yes. I said, well, therefore there is life in the universe. And I said, look at Earth. I said, the diversity on this planet should tell you how the diversity is. And I said, let's be honest. There's only 3 ways life got on this planet. I said, either God put us here, aliens put us here, or panspermia. That's it. Pick your choice. And I said, most people are going to say panspermia because that's just the building blocks of life. And by the way, they just found a comet loaded with the building blocks of life, by the way, crashed into our planet and probably created life on this planet. So you can believe in that. You can believe ET came here and adjusted it, or you can believe God did. Whatever way you want, but that's the 3 ways. But any way you go, it suggests that there's going to be life in other places. Because God, and I love this one, a good religious friend of mine said, well, God created us. I said, you're limiting God to just us? I said, really? I said, I would not limit God that way. He may send you to hell for that. And he looked at me like, I said, God's the creator of the universe. We're just one little speck in the universe. I said, you think you might look at Earth and say, oh, shit, I effed up. Let's move on. Let's try it over here, or try it over here. I'm just.
Well, what do you think would happen if truth did come out and all of a sudden there is no God? It was a science experiment, and these are ET that came from another place, and they trying to lengthen their lifespan, and they mated with humans and whatever, right? Or whatever, man, like something like that. What if it's like that? What do you think would happen with people, the billions of people that are so immersed?
Well,
in
one,
their
they're not going to believe it, and 2, they're going to start a damn religious war. But at least it'd be one thing: all the religions would probably get together against the people who believed in aliens, which means we'd all get massacred. But still,
yeah,
it would be fun. It's just, and that's a good preacher friend of mine. In the old days when we used to run the support group on Pal Talk, the Alien Phenomena group. It was funny. They had these 4 pastors that would come in. They were always trying to debunk it. And one day they were all 4 in the room at the same time. And I said, let me ask y'all something. And they said, what? I said, are you telling me that the creator couldn't create life somewhere else? I said, are you really limiting the creator to just us?
Yeah.
And when I said that, all 4 of them changed their minds. It was so funny. Matter of fact, they started reteaching. They were sending me what they were saying in their different things. And they said it would not be good to limit the creator just to us. Because if you look at the universe, it's vast, it's huge, and more than likely God did create more than just us. So he'd be just kind of bored with us by now. So it is true. You can't limit the creator. And then we know about panspermia. We know the building blocks of life are in these rocks and in these comets, and they're crashing not into just this planet, to planets all over the universe. So trying to say we're the only thing alive in the universe is just ignorant. There's no other way to put it but that way. You're just ignorant if you believe that. And if you believe God only created us, you're even more ignorant. Ignorant, yes.
I think you got to go back to Noah, and you have to understand that Noah wasn't from the earth. Noah was from somewhere else, And there's a really good argument for Mars, man. I made it on my show a few times, and I did my research. Very interesting stuff. And I even used the report from the CIA from Project Stargate that they put online about this mapping out of Mars and how they went back 1 million years and all this other stuff. Very interesting reading, man. Very.
It is strange. And, Mars gets me in trouble all the time because somebody said, well, I said, you do know the human clock is set on 24 and a quarter hour days. And they're like, well, yeah, that's what it is. I said, well, Earth's only got a 23 and 3/4 hour clock. And you can see their face go like, huh? I'm like, yeah, Mars has a 24 and a quarter hour day. It's the only true 24-hour day planet in the solar system is Mars, not us. So that's why we have a leap year. I said, we can make it up. And I said, but our biological clocks are not set that way. Right. I said, and then there's another problem. I said, the optimal temperature for humans to work in is 73 degrees Fahrenheit. The average temperature on Earth is 83 degrees, but Mars 53 million years ago, they do estimate was 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, how can that be? So that suggests that maybe the building blocks of life came from Mars. Maybe it was a ship that came here with colonists. Maybe it was just simple shit that Martians sit here because they knew they were going to die. Whatever it may have been, it is a good possibility that life here started there.
That report, they said that a ship had left Mars with about 10 people on it, and the guy even described the ship, what it looked like, and then they were going to a planet that was close by that was it was turbulent. It was like volcanic, all this other stuff. But the one difference is that the planet they were going to had plant life, which whatever happened to Mars, there was some major cataclysm that happened that geologically destroyed the place, and this is why they had to leave. They had to leave, otherwise they were going to die.
Well, it's interesting you said that because when Neil deGrasse Tyson was on with me, I brought this up to him. I said, I find it interesting, Neil, that Mars, Earth, and Venus all went catastrophic around the same time, between 55 and 65 million years ago. I said, did you ever stop and think that maybe something came through the asteroid belt, or maybe when the asteroid belt, whenever the planet was that blew up, it took big chunks of rocks out. One hit Mars, because we know that's what created Olympus Mons. If you look at Mars, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at one side of Mars, there's a big, huge impact crater. On the other side, there's Olympus Mons, which is the largest volcano in the solar system. What it looks like is it smacked and killed the core and sent it out into space. So they probably had to leave. Well, Venus is a lot like Earth. The upper atmosphere is identical to Earth. But they're pretty sure that's what happened there. A rock smacked it and sent it into global warming. Well, we know what killed the dinosaurs in the Yucatan Peninsula. There was a major impact 63 million years ago, approximately. So it's interesting that these three planets, this could have been intentional too. It could have been a war of some kind. We don't really know because nobody was around back then. But it would suggest that if Mars had life, intelligent life, and that did happen, they would have came to Earth. It would have been the next logical place to go because Venus was screwed. Here, it would have been rough in the beginning, and that could have been Atlantis. That ship, there could have been a big colony ship. It could have landed in the Atlantic. It could have been Atlantis. It could have landed on a continent there. And it would explain a lot of things when Atlantis sank or blew up or whenever the ship was destroyed. That's why the Egyptians and the Mesoamericans have similarities from pyramid building to several other things, because some of the survivors would have made it to Africa, and some of them would have made it to South America. And it would have made sense. There would have been parallels in evolution. There would have been sense, too. There would have been parallels in their gods and demons and things like that. And they just had different names. But there was a lot of parallels between the two. So it's not a proven thing by any means. But we do know that there is the sunken city off the coast of Cuba. We're sitting in 2,000 feet of water. And they say the pyramid there, all of the Egyptian pyramids combined could fit inside this pyramid and still have space left over.
Well, apparently in Egypt, it was all plush and green. And they have the Pyrrhus Reis maps, which show it all plush and green. It also shows Australia not as an island, but as part of the whole peninsula down there. So obviously there was a culture at least 1.2 million years ago, before the Ice Age began, that had the technology to have hyper-accurate surveys of the Earth. And then you have the Black Knight. And apparently there's two that are on polar orbits, man, and nobody can ever get near them, right? And then that's the stuff that they deny. That's the stuff, it doesn't exist, or there's no such thing.
And there's lots of pictures of them, too. Lots of satellites have caught them besides ours. There's been lots of people over the years. What gets me is a lot of private people, a lot of private satellites will release those. Governments won't, but the private satellites will. So you can't deny that they're there, because we've got them from at least a dozen satellites.
What about the bases on the dark side of the moon? Which is a very common thing. People talk about it very freely. The ones who were in the know, the ones who actually worked in NASA back in the days, the people who saw it first in the 60s when they were sending satellites around the moon when they first saw it. But they're not going to share that.
Well, Neil Armstrong came out and said that there was a colony inside a large asteroid there. There was a bunch of dome things. And when the aliens came out, they warned them not to come back.
Asteroid.
But Neil didn't say not to come back to the moon, just not to come back to the
Not an asteroid. You mean
No, it was an asteroid hole, a crater, yes.
A crater, yeah.
Big ass crater, too. And
he said they were parked like a parking lot watching them.
But since then, though, it looks like they've left. Or they went underground, because I can tell you this. There are now 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 countries that have satellites orbiting the moon.
But as we grow, they have to kind of hide, as it were. But now they're starting to show themselves. I mean, if they're floating above an aircraft carrier, that's pretty intense.
But you notice, though, they're not really screwing with anybody but Americans. The Chinese and the Russians.
I was just going to say that. Isn't that weird?
It's not that China, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, China and Russians have had reports, but not like the Americans do. It seems like, and it really seems like to me, and this makes sense to me, because when they said that Germany was contacted in the 1900s, the century before last, Germans were the most advanced country on the planet. Today, America is the most advanced country on the planet.
If you were going to contact someone, if you were ET, who would you contact, honestly?
the safest country, the country that has the less likely to blow your ass up, and that's us.
Yeah.
Because the Russians and Chinese would instantly try to get their technology.
They would,
Whereas America
would
try.
manipulate the technology and use it against us.
Yeah,
You
where,
know, you
where
don't
Americans
have-
would want the technology, but we're not going to go wipe out aliens and get it because we would fear reprisal.
if we had it, but we wouldn't use it against other countries. We already actually rule the world. You know, may sound strange, but we have bases all over the world. We're in 3-minute strike time from any country, any country's major city. So that's power.
And as
Right
big mouth Xi Jinping found out 3 different times, we've brought up nuclear submarines around their country 4 at a time without them even knowing they were there, and they were all within less than 15 minutes striking of every city in their country. So we can wipe them out if we want to. It's just not what we want to do.
And you don't think that Ronald Reagan's Star Wars weapons way back then, that they ended the program and they don't do anything? Come on, man. You know, we got satellites up there that's got the whole Terra weapons and all the other stuff that, you know.
Well, we know they deployed satellite killers because the Chinese did. So we got them up there. They're defensive satellite killers, but we also know that DARPA's been deploying shit up there. We don't know what DARPA's been putting up there.
But we got, you know, that they have EMP, you know, that they can shut stuff down. I mean, you know, this is a technology that, you know, we used the EMP rocket in Iraq. When we invaded Iraq, took out their communications center with an EMP. Psh, boom. Everything's short-circuited, done.
Yeah.
You know,
most of our jets now have EMP shielding on board, at least on the crucial parts of the jet. The electronics and the stuff that makes the engines run and stuff like that. I got flagged for that about 22 years ago. I was talking on Wake Up USA, and I brought it up about EMP shielding on board the ships. I get sanctioned for it, is what they call it.
Oh, yeah. They don't want to hear that.
They were like, Joe, you can't talk about that. And I was like, what? So that's going to cost you a sanction. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's not classified. I say, oh, yeah, it's still classified. That's 24 years after I was out of the military. And they said, oh, it's still, and I found out just recently about half of the stuff I know is still classified. I'm like, get the hell out of here, man. How can it still, here we are. It's been 30 years since I've been in the service. How can this shit still be classified?
Because they don't want to tell anybody anything, man.
Yeah, because they don't want you to know they had microchips and stuff like that way back in the day.
They'll never confess anything, man. Never.
Which scares me to think what we got hidden around right now. If we don't want to talk about stuff we had 30 or 40 years ago, I hate to see what we got hidden right now. And that's, again, like I said, DARPA's been deploying something in space, which the Russians and Chinese contested, but we don't know what it is, and neither did they, for that matter. Some type of satellites up there. Some people say they think they're swarm satellites, like these. Like, you seen what Iran? So I didn't tell you. We're gonna bring this up real quick. So the Americans sent Iran a package a couple months ago. Right? We didn't know what it was. We found out the other day they used it against the tower, whoever it was. They used drone swarms. 300 drones swarming them with bombs and missiles and machine guns. They didn't have a chance against this. Now, we're not the only one developing this technology. China's developing, so is Russia. But we're developing in a major way. But we're really U.S. still lies heavily on nuclear weapons. Now, Russia does lead the field in hypersonic missiles. They're ahead of us in that technology. I'm not going to lie to y'all. And China's trying to get there. But if China would learn how not to be such cheap asses, their technology would work. I mean, they can't even get their 2 carriers yet to launch jets off of them. They've been having them afloat for 2 years. They're a joke. Somebody said, "Oh, their Navy's bigger." Yeah, it's bigger than us. Like the Russians was bigger than us. That don't mean shit.
Surprised they don't sink, man. Really.
Well, one of them just old Russian rag.
Saddam had the 4th largest army in the world. You saw how fast that lasted. An hour?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but they were like, actually, technically at the time they had 2 million marching men, which was bigger than our army. And you see, we didn't even care. We just took them out. And same thing we do to most Indians.
Our dudes who are in tanks listening to AC/DC, man, plowing through.
They were too.
That's crazy though, you know. Like these guys were like so gung ho in that, and then remember the Republican Guard, they were giving up. They were like, "Oh, we surrender."
Yeah, and then first off, we cut all their supply lines off, so they didn't have no food. They thought that we used a stealth so we could take out all their radar towers, so they couldn't even find our jets after a while. We had, eyes and skies flying all over the place, watching everything they were doing.
Found Saddam.
But that was a lesson. In case you all know what that was about, that was to let the Chinese and the Russians know, you better pay attention. We got way better technology than you think we do. You see how well it just worked against them. And that was all Russian, in case y'all didn't know, that was all good Russian equipment. That wasn't shitty. They had good MiGs. They had radar systems that came from. They had anti-aircraft that came from Russia. We just showed Russia that their whole entire system was garbage. We could still take them out.
If you notice, we're not really investing anymore in the aircraft. Man, the Raptor is pretty much the last bit. They're shoring up some other stuff that works, but we have swarms now. We've got different weapons, man. I mean,
well, we got a Gen 6 coming out, but they say it's going to be
there's no pilots. No, you don't have to train anybody. It's all AI. These. So I mean,
I like what the guy said the other day. We've got 2 generations of kids that have just been gaming for decades, and that's what makes them so good.
Well, who do you think invented the games? It was the Army, man. It was the military that funded all of these games for Xbox. They funded the entire thing. They wanted people to be able to do battle.
Just on a funny note, if you've ever watched the movie, was it not Starman? I can't think of the name. Anyway, the kid's playing a video game, and then the aliens come to get him because the aliens invented the video game.
Right.
This is actually a true story. The military has games.
The Last Starfighter.
Yeah, Last Starfighter. If you break certain high scores, they come knocking on your door and recruit you. And the reason I know this is I know 2 people have been recruited, and they will come in and recruit you because if you can fly like 20 and 30 things at a time, they want you because they know they can send you over there. And remember, people, we have drones now that can go faster than the speed of sound, up to Mach 3 and 4, and they are on. They don't have any man, which means they can do maneuvers that a regular plane can. But there is a 6th gen coming out. We are putting one more 6th gen stealth fighter out there. One of the best things we've ever built. But that's it. After that, from what I understand, everything's going to be remote.
Oh, you mean a bomber? They got a new bomber.
No,
fighter.
They got a new
fighter bomber.
Yeah, but they got a new 6th gen fighter coming out.
It already came out.
No, not this one yet. This is about 2 years out before we'll see.
I don't know. They just
it's a new fighter. Yeah, they got a bomber fighter that came out. But this is something they say makes the F-35 and the F-22 look like old hat crap from the 60s.
But the reality is, man, we've always been ahead of. I mean, the MiGs are bullshit. You know that. They're always bullshit. We've always been ahead. Our F-16s and F-15s, F-14s, they blew that stuff away. The A-10, look at the A-10.
Oh, the Warthog was a beast. I got to work on them.
You can't, you know what? You can't even shoot them out of the sky. I mean, the gas tanks are protected. I mean, they can be riddled with bullets. They're still going to function and operate.
Yeah, people, the A-10s are tank killers is what they are.
When they hear that, those soldiers hear that sound. When they heard that sound, man, oh my God. What about the gunships that fire the cannons? They could just kind of circle around.
Well, the Warthog has 2 20-millimeter Gatling guns on it. They are beastified, and they got armor-piercing rounds. They'll cut a tank into shreds in seconds.
And then the most devastating, honestly, is the Apache helicopters, man, because they can get anywhere. They can see over hills. They can hide. They can fly silently, basically.
We got a new helicopter coming out in 2 years, too.
They got silent helicopters, man. So
yeah, we do. We've been having them for a couple of years now.
One flew over my house about 5 or 6 years ago, dude. And I saw the thing coming in. It had a blue light on the front, right? Like it was real bright coming down the lake. And I was watching this thing for a while. When it flew over, there was no noise. There was a very low vibration, like boom, but there was no noise, helicopter noise, nothing. I went outside.
We hear the silent ones every now and then.
They're cool.
Jack, what do you mean? Do I think any of these are? No. What we're talking about right now is probably not alien technology. Maybe in the beginning, way back in the day, we might have used it to get to where we are today. But these are just progressive technologies that we're constantly working on, that these big tech companies are working on to sell to us.
Well, about lasers, man. Look at the lasers we have.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is what bothers me. So was it Clinton? What was it, Clinton? Yeah, I think it was Clinton. Who came out? Either it was Bush or Clinton. Anyway, when we decided, we built these 727s that have lasers on board. Now, the first time they were chemical lasers and they ran out real fast. Now we have them. So what they do is they can fly a figure eight over the country. Because we're going to give one to Europe. We're going to deploy about 12 of these all together. Some people say they're already deployed. I don't know if they actually are, but all they do is they do fly figure eights. Now, if the Russia launches missiles, these things can shoot down the missiles while they're coming through for space in a matter of seconds. So it can track targets up to 5,000 targets at a time.
They are
badass.
Super sophisticated targeting systems, man. I mean, so basically, and also, you don't have to fly around. They could be in satellites or they could be on the ground. I mean, it's just really great technology. It's getting better every day.
Sean, that's a good thing you brought up. So the Raptor was the first jet we built without a joystick. So they do have joysticks in, but we have about 3 dozen of them that you put this little helmet on. It's got this little thing in your head, and you control everything by your thought. Nothing is by, it sends a signal to the craft, and they say that it's about 15 times faster. So if this guy is going up against a MiG or something like that, or a Chinese, whatever crap Chinese are flying these days, which right now their jets suck, it will blow him out the sky before the guy can even reach to shoot his gun. This guy's already thought about and fired the weapon, so they're done for. It has been technology we've had since about 10 or about 15 years now. And we have been using it. It's also deployed in some of the F-35s. We just keep them really close to ourselves because, one, they don't always work the way they're supposed to, and two, we don't want the Chinese or Russians getting their hands on it. Somehow or another, a lot of our technology seems to end up in Chinese hands.
They steal our secrets, man. They get sold.
Well, it's funny. If you looked at the Chinese fighter, it looked just like the F-14 Tomcat.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be stealth, and it was stealthy. Radar had a hard time picking it up, but it left such a big black smoky ass contrail. You didn't need stealth to see it. You didn't see this thing coming for weeks, man.
Yeah.
And still to this day, their stealth tech just is not where ours is. Ours today, y'all know we got stealth boats. We got this boat now that can cruise 75 miles an hour in the water. And it's completely stealth. You can't even see the damn thing. And if radar does pick it up, they think it's like a small whale swimming along. It's unbelievable how stealthy.
They've got nanofiber, man, that you can see through. That goes right, so you can cover things in that. It looks like you're looking right through the thing, So talk about stealth.
But to help y'all understand this, y'all know just recently the Chinese were doing had a big fleet movement in the South China Sea, right? So all this is going on before they knew what was going on. I forgot. It's one of the newer destroyers we have. It pulled up alongside the carrier before anybody knew the damn thing. So it went through the fleet, basically unseen, and pulled up next to the carrier before anybody knew it was there. It could have wiped out half the Chinese fleet before they knew what the hell was going on.
Well, go back to the Eldridge, man. Go back to, the technology they were working on, and that whole goddamn ship disappeared, then reappeared with people fused in the deck, man. But this, and they based it on Nikola Tesla and Einstein, a system they came up with, but Tesla died that January, and they went ahead and did the Eldridge anyway, without him, of course, because he was dead, but very interesting how that's the technology that was then, and imagine what they have now.
Yeah, we got some serious shit going on. And it's not to say our enemies aren't going to build stuff like that, but in the end, it's not conducive for China or Russia or America to be enemies with each other. Because in the end, devastation in China means devastation in the United States. So if we nuke China, unless we use low-yield tactical nukes, which we do have, and we do have, in case y'all didn't know this, we have neutron bombs. And if y'all don't know what a neutron bomb is, a neutron bomb has no explosive force to it.
Nope.
It impacts and it just spreads out radiation for about 20
kills
miles.
The people, leaves the buildings.
Leaves the buildings and everything intact. And after 2 years, you can go in and re-inhabit the whole place and reuse it. It doesn't even do an EMP. So it's not even wiping out the electronics. So it is very deadly. It's very badass. And we're the only country that possesses them. And for a long time, we denied it, but recently we admitted to it.
We got the daisy cutters, man. That only cost $28,000 to make. You know what I mean? It's fuel air bomb. It's the biggest ordnance aside from a nuclear warhead, but with no radiation. It's fuel air.
Yeah, actually, Sean, you're right. They did. They were sinking them. So the Americans, I love this. So they're out there doing this. So the American pulls out, the George Washington? No, the George Bush. It drops a 40,000-pound bomb next to the carrier and does no damage to the carrier whatsoever. This carrier is still cruising, fully on, fully going.
Well, it wasn't next to it, but it was near it, yeah.
Well, no, they did two experiments. They dropped a 30,000-pound bomb a quarter mile off.
I watched
for the wake, and then they dropped another one within 100 yards of the boat.
They just did it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so there was a dual test, and for some reason they only talked about the first part, but the second part came out 2 days later, and it was badass. And watching this, but see, the Russian mock stuff don't have. I hope this ain't classified. So the M1 Averys, what time is it? We developed this system for the M1 Averys. So if you shoot it and something hits it, instead of damaging it, it actually has a charge built into the side of the tank that recoils out away from the tank. So it blows the charge out away from it. That was 25 years ago we had this. So since then, we've improved on it. But since then, we've also added electronic shielding to it. So now it has a 2C shielding defense system. That's why you don't ever see these tanks with any damage on them, because they're almost impossible to hit anymore.
Yeah.
So we started doing this to our battle cruisers. First off, all of our ships now are stealth. It started with the Agus cruisers, and since then we've actually improved on the Agus much. They're not even that great anymore compared to the new stuff. Have y'all seen the Zimwald? The Zimwalt is a beast. This bitch can do 70 knots. That's like 90 miles an hour. It shoots. It's got rail guns that can cut through anything. Anything. Don't get me wrong. The bullets are expensive as all hell, but the rail guns, if you were to just aim it at a carrier or any Russian ship or Chinese ship for 20 miles away, it could cut them in half. There's no way to stop it, and they do not possess this kind of technology. These things are beastified. We mothball them, even though we built like 70 of them to deploy. We mothball them because they're so expensive. But if we went to war, we'd just go drop one of the ships, and in 2 days, they'd all be back in operation. And we did stockpile quite a lot of ammo for them. They are beastified. Plus, now we have some of the most advanced missile systems you can ever see.
Well, look at that new destroyer, man. That's got all the gadgets on it. You know,
that's the Zimwalt. That's the Zimwalt class, actually.
Yeah.
And they are beastified. I wouldn't. Ain't nobody screwing with them thing. And they're fast. They're maneuverable, and they can just. Plus, the son of a bitch can shoot inland. It can shoot just regular shells inland for 40 miles.
Yep.
So it can sit way off the coast and just lob shit at you all day long. Kind of reminds me of the old battleships we used to have that could just lob shit in 20 miles. Those big, using monster shells they used to shoot. Yeah, they can just lob.
They got freaking 16-inch guns, man.
Yeah, so I mean, if I was an outside country, and I don't think, some of this may be alien technology that we retrofitted or redid, but most of it I think is just progressive technology. The U.S. we have companies. Think about it. We've got companies like Elon Musk's company. We got Boeing, Lockheed. These are companies that really, this is all they do. Yeah, they build commercial airlines.
It comes down to the microchip, and the technology behind that, and then what grew. So whatever they had, it seems like they reverse designed, but it was probably more of a gift than anything.
I think the original crash thing at Roswell, where they say we got the microchip and aircraft aluminum fiber optics, was probably a gift because they said that's why they found 3 dead alien bodies there. And at the Corona crash, they found 3 human bodies. Because the Corona, they found the craft intact. And Mac Brazel's ranch, it was all broke up. It sounded like the Grays got in like an escape craft or escape pod, and then it just hit the ground and disintegrated. Yeah. And that would make sense because any spacecraft that can travel interstellar space is not going to break up on impact, because the reason you notice is because little pieces of dust in space would rip right through it if it was that delicate. Now, if it was one of ours, we couldn't take it anywhere at high speeds. It would just disintegrate. But these ships are made for this. So, more than likely, we recovered it for the Germans, and the aliens said, all right, you know what? The U.S. is the most advanced country now. Let's go see what we can help them. Because it looked like they were helping the Germans for a while. The Germans were seriously more advanced than anybody at World War II. I mean, they were way ahead of us.
Because Hitler thought outside the box. He wasn't limited in his vision. He went after psychics. He went after mediums. He was all into the mysticisms behind the Bible and looking for the Ark of the Covenant and all that. Yeah. I mean, this guy, there was missions all over the world, right? Even before the war, this was what this guy was into.
If he would have limited himself and stayed friends with Russia and curtailed his African thing a little bit, he could have conquered the United States. He could have conquered all of Europe and the United States.
They got there unified Europe, didn't they? I mean,
but we stole their scientists and invented the nuclear weapon, and after that, it was over with.
Project Paperclip, man.
Yeah, nobody was challenging that. After we dropped the nuke on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the whole world went, oh shit, and that was the end of that war. Even the Japanese,
they knew they couldn't give him the bomb. They knew it. They knew that. Those scientists knew.
Because he would have nuked everybody. He'd nuked us and everybody else.
They invented the first guided rocket, right? The what was it, a V2? Something like that?
V2 is badass, too, by the way. If they could have put a nuke on top of that, Europe would have never been the same. We got to go to, Frank, you're talking about, a lot of people say Hitler went and lived on the moon. Maybe he did, maybe he did. Maybe the aliens felt sorry for the crazy bastard and brought him up there. But but some people say that they recovered the remains of Hitler. So
he killed himself, man.
Yeah, that's what they say. Him and his girlfriend and somebody else, he killed himself and them. He killed them first and then himself, and that was recovered. The Russians actually recovered him, but they did turn the remains over to the United States. So that was what was said. Whether that is true or not, I don't know.
Well, he was insane. He was clinically insane.
Yeah, he was. He was brilliant and insane all at the same time. And remember, he's the guy who said in the book Mein Kampf, he said, fair-haired, blue-eyed angels used to come speak to him in the evenings, floating in he described, just like we described the human aliens, that they used to come there and tell him how to do these different things. remember, you got to remember, the aliens would have came to the most advanced race at that time, which was the Germans, not us. Nobody was as advanced as the Germans at World War I and World War II. It wasn't them. It wasn't us. It was them. So, and he describes these aliens coming to visit him. But somewhere along the line, he just lost it. He just overextended himself, and we took advantage of it. And then, the Britons were pissed. Everybody was pissed because he was well on his way to conquering Britain. I mean, China. I mean, not China. Italy had already been taken over. France had been taken over. Most of Europe had been taken over. Britain was barely holding out. And if America wouldn't have gotten the war, Britain would have fell easily. He would have controlled Europe.
He knew, because that's why he gave orders not to be disturbed on D-Day. Not to be awoken. That was a very important thing, that don't wake me up, and they didn't.
I forgot which one it was. I always get confused with the Lithuanian was the first war. They sank the Lithuanian. That's why we got in. But anyway, I forget which events it was that got us into the war, but it wasn't because they were bombing the shit out of Britain. That
World War II. You know what? World War. It was Pearl Harbor. That's what drew us in.
Oh yeah, that's it. That is what drew us in. Pearl Harbor.
We weren't going to get involved. That the first time it was that ship that they sent across the English Canal that they knew there was people on that were just civilians.
I love that. What's his name here? I can't think of the admiral's name. I remember when he said this. Everybody's got this in writing. He warned the emperor not to wake the sleeping giant. He said, just leave America alone. If they're going to stay out of this, leave them alone. He said, we can conquer the Pacific. They can conquer Europe. And later on, we can go after America. But he warned them not to wake us. And when they woke us, it took us a year to get our shit going. And after that, we was just kicking ass all over the place. We were like, nope,
China's communist because of us, and Japan, because it was Japan that they had the imperialism, and then they controlled China, man. They demoralized those people and treated
them
like
you know
dirt.
that the Japanese conquered Japan by hardly finding a shot? They were giving bowls of rice out in trade for guns. Yeah, Japan was giving China's people bowls of rice for guns.
Yep,
that's how bad off the China was.
Yeah,
and so Japan should have kept them. Or the United States should have just kept them.
Now World War II, where Japan agreed to pull out, that's when the communist government in China, it was Mao Zedong, it was the only strong government that structure was there.
We should let Japan keep China, and when we took over Japan, and we'd own all of that now.
Right.
We all friendly. But anyway, we got to get out of here because we only got like 3 minutes.
And the Middle East, by the way. We could have kept the Middle East for ourselves.
Actually, there's a map. If y'all want to go look at a map at the end of World War II, what territories the United States controlled, it was 2/3 of the world. 2/3 of the world. If we'd have kept it all, the world would be a united place today. We wouldn't have all this bullshit going on. So sometimes maybe we were wrong about our give back policy. But anyway, we got to get out of here.
Didn't work for Hong Kong.
Man, didn't work for a lot of people. Give people, don't forget, Out Around coming up next with Amelia de Blasio.
Amelia de Blasio, the mayor of New York City's wife.
Shit. All right, anyway, coming up next, the Out Around with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Their guest is Dr. Rita Lewis. Y'all enjoy. They'll be on in about 10 minutes. Mike, thanks for coming and hanging out. Y'all can catch him on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And he'll be with us this Friday too. So y'all watch out for the Centrist. Yeah, he'll be on tomorrow. And I think that Chase and Truth asked me I think they're doing Roswell tomorrow, so I think I'm joining them. I forgot to write them back, but I will in a little while. But again, on that note, goodbye and stay tuned for the Outer Realm. And don't forget, vote.
Go and vote.